Hello and welcome to the webinar on the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. My name is Torianne from the Clymb team, and I'm joined by some amazing guests from Strong Schools Maryland, MOST Network, University Startups, and of course, Clymb. We're going to be opening the webinar with a 5-minute overview on the history of the Maryland Blueprint, and then we'll go into a deep dive into pillars 3 and 4. You'll hear from University Startups and Clymb, and then we'll open it for a Q&A for everyone to ask any questions of the experts and clarify anything that they want to learn about the Blueprint. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Maya from Strong Schools Maryland.
Of advocating for the Kirwan Commission, which later became the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. And through the work of our small but mighty team pictured here and the Strong Schools Maryland network, we advocate, build power, and share resources with invested Maryland residents to co-create strong public schools that produce graduates equipped to thrive. And we envision a Maryland that leads the nation in achieving equitable funding for public schools and empowered stakeholder engagement. And everyone is a part, back a slide, please. Thank you. And everyone is a part of implementation. And the Blueprint allows us all to co-create what strong public schools look like together. We believe that if just one invested Maryland resident gathers with other like-minded individuals, that long-lasting systemic change can occur when those folks are meeting with legislators, attending rallies, testifying at their local school boards, writing op-eds, and just taking action as informed advocates. Pardon my dog. Next slide, please. The Blueprint is a part of Maryland's ongoing educational fight for equity. Taking a look back to 1954, when Brown versus Board of Education made it unconstitutional to segregate schools. In the middle there, you'll see Dr. Alvin Thornton, who was the head of the Thornton Commission and the Bridge to Excellence that laid a foundation in Maryland that it's also the state's constitutional responsibility to fund and provide quality public education to all students. The 2017 Kirwan Commission that resulted in the passing of Maryland, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in 2021 picks up that long-lasting vision of change for all of Maryland's students. Next slide, please. Each pillar of the Blueprint is meant to work together to achieve a goal of world-class education for all students, starting with access to all-day pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds in Pillar 1, increased teacher pay, and forming partnerships with HBCUs or other minority serving institutions to hire more diverse applicants in Pillar 2. And in Pillar 5, it even creates a state agency, the Accountability and Implementation Board, to oversee Blueprint implementation. But today we'll be diving into Pillar 3 and 4. Next slide, please. Pillar 3, the college and career readiness pillar of the Blueprint, requires schools to provide individualized career advising to every middle and high school student and provides the funding to support counseling offerings per student. The goal is for all students to be college and career ready by the 10th grade so that all students are able to explore options for the next steps that they would like to take, whether that's through an apprenticeship program or a dual enrollment course. It also creates the Career and Technical Education Innovation Grant Program to provide $2 million annually to support partnerships between at least one local board of education, one community college, and an industry partner to develop and implement an innovative career and technical education curriculum framework and pathways based on domestic and international best practices, because we're talking about a world-class education system here. And so the next slides that I'll go over will show the Pillar 3 outcome measure and objectives set by the Accountability and Implementation Board, that state agency that is responsible for overseeing Blueprint implementation. They have created their comprehensive plan that where you'll see these outcomes listed in the objectives that are in their plan. But if you're interested in learning more about the outcome measures for each pillar, you can attend a Strong Schools Maryland Outcome Measures Workshop. The link for that will be provided after the webinar. So as we're going through these, take into consideration these questions and put in the chat what you think about the Pillar 3 outcome measure and objectives as I go through them. So next slide. So starting with the vision. I'm not going to read each slide, but just based off of the vision present here, what opportunities do you think Maryland students need to achieve this vision? An example could be counseling, college and career counseling, exploring opportunities and apprenticeships. Any ideas you have, feel free to put them in the chat. Awesome, thank you. Tammy says experiences with community colleagues, understanding their resources. Kathy says definitely apprenticeships, awesome. Any other ideas folks have? Yes, that is huge, Stephanie. Starting from birth. There are a lot of early childhood advocates who are fighting for that for sure. Awesome, thank you, Kristen. Community encouragement. Awesome. Thank you. And feel free to interact with folks if you like what they posted as well. And next slide, please. So this is objective 1. So all of these objectives, there will be 4 objectives, all are guideposts to how we're seeking to achieve the vision that we just saw. And when you see this, what opportunities do you think Maryland students need to achieve this? And how will we know we've reached this objective? Awesome, Tammy said exposure to enrichment opportunities. Yeah, it's definitely some of the same things, but how can we all work together? What kind of resources do you know about in your community? What kind of access do students need? So STEM and coding, yeah, that's big. Yep, and CCR, correct, Stephanie, also doesn't start at high school. With the blueprint, it starts in middle school, which is super important. We can move on to objective 2. So how are we tracking the progress of CCR standards? A portion of the blueprint in Pillar 3, the implementation is about creating this 9th grade tracker. So what kind of metrics would constitute a 9th grader being college or career ready? Any ideas? Awesome. Dual enrollment in the 9th grade. That sounds awesome. And promotion rates. Like promotion at in grade level. If you would care to explain a little bit, John. We can move on to the next objective also as folks continue to pour. Yes, from 9th to the 10th. Awesome. Tied hand in hand with that is objective 3, implementing these pathways. So continue to brainstorm your ideas if you have not put them in the chat already. So John was saying yes from 9th to 10th grade promotion rates. Tammy was saying invite local businesses in the community to interact with students and vice versa. I love that idea. Brian says responsible decision-making skills. Absolutely. A decrease in student dropouts, said Kristen. And Tammy said schools need freedom and flexibility to meet the needs of their students. Absolutely. And the last objective, objective 4. So what would it look like? What opportunities do students need when it comes to career counseling and CTE programs? What does it look like to provide that high quality career counseling? I'm especially interested based on the crowd here. What kind of counseling services are out there that are like top tier? What does that look like? Job fairs. And absolutely agree, Tammy, discussions starting before 11th grade as to what opportunities are out there and how to reach educational goals. And absolutely agreed. A counselor taking the time. So what does that look like in terms of the ratio of counselors to students to have the time to explain pathways as students can take? Computer-based career assessments as well. And yes, all pathways, not just college. And Stephanie says students need instruction on strengths, types of options, etc. before 10th grade. Agreed. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking a look at those with me. If you have more thoughts about these, definitely feel free to continue to put them in the chat. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can get involved with advocating for a more equitable school system, you can contact me. I'll drop my email and my phone number in the chat. You can learn more about how you can get involved. And then there are also links that will be sent out after the webinar for more resources in our website. And with that, I will pass it over to Ellie Mitchell to cover Pillar 4.
Thank you, Maya. And I highly encourage everyone to go visit Strong Schools Maryland's website and find out ways that you can get involved in the advocacy side of this work. They're also just great information. I am Ellie Mitchell. I am the director of the Maryland Out of School Time Network. We are kind of an advocacy organization for more and better after school and summer learning opportunities. And we also serve as the backbone for the Maryland Coalition for Community Schools. And I'm excited to dive into Pillar 4 with you today. Next slide. Excellent. So Pillar 4 also has these objectives that are laid out in the Blueprint Implementation Plan that was created by the Accountability and Implementation Board. I'll say a little bit more about them later. Today, we're going to really dive deep on the community schools aspect of the objectives, but I did just want to touch base on the other objectives here. So the first one about developing proxies for identifying students who need more resources to be successful, that's really about how we count poverty in Maryland. And that is a flowing thing right now. There have been different approaches taken each year, and there are some new ideas that are being explored. So you might want to track that conversation a little bit for how poverty is being counted in your schools, and how that then interacts with the Blueprint funding, because there are some relationships there. In objective 2, it talks about improving education for English language learners. And there was a whole work group just focused on this topic. And there's a great report from that work group, and many of those suggestions were incorporated into the Blueprint implementation plan. So if you're interested in that, all that information's on the AIB Accountability and Implementation Board website. There's also increased per pupil funding for English language learners and special education students. We're hoping that there's going to be another work group focused specifically on special education students. So that is something you may want to track if you are in that area. And then there is a new group. I'm going to skip over community schools for the second because we're going to go dive deep in that soon. But there is a new group called the Consortium for Coordinated Community Supports. And that consortium is something that is going to really bring some efficiency to how schools get to access health and behavioral health resources. So again, I have a link to that later for you to explore more. These are all big things. The Pillar 4 is really deep and rich, but today we're gonna go right into community schools. So next slide. So before I get into what the Blueprint says about community schools, I want to kind of talk about our national and state understanding of what a community school is. This is one of my favorite graphics because I think it gives you that big picture right in those 4 pillars. We're talking about integrated student supports, those kind of wraparound services that you think of when you think of a community school, but also expanded learning time. So after school, maybe family classes and engagement, which goes directly into your active family and community engagement pieces, so that we talk about community schools as open doors, open windows, that it's not just serving the students inside that building, but also reaching out to the larger community. And my favorite pillar, which does not get talked about enough, is the collaborative leadership practices, where really you're taking away that idea of just principal as superhero. Everybody has a place in decision making and in supporting that school, both the community and the school itself. So it's really a different way of thinking about how school gets done. So that's just a little grounding in the community school space. If you go to the next slide, unfortunately, my 4 pillars image, which everybody loves, is being replaced, phased out with to this new wheel, which I will not go into depth, but I really encourage you to explore the community schools forward work that you can find at the Learning Policy Institute link here. This really talks about in more depth, what are the elements that you need to be a full-fledged community school, and talking at that top there, that shared governance structure. So all those wheels and gears turning towards really transforming how we think about education using the community school model. I want you to go look at that and dive deep in that, particularly if you're a community school coordinator or somebody working in that space. So go to the next slide. In the Blueprint for Maryland Future, right now, there are 358 community schools that have been funded through the Blueprint in 18 counties. So that's super exciting. It wasn't that long ago that there were fewer than 100 community schools in Maryland. So huge expansion very quickly. There are 4 components to the concentration of poverty grants that establish community schools as part of the Blueprint. And I really also love to encourage people to go read the bill. It is HB 1300 from 2020. I'm going to drop a link in the chat so you can go find it and read it if you feel like it. But the concentration of poverty in community schools pieces start on page 33. So there's really some basic things that are in there. The first is a personnel grant for every eligible schools. There is $257,000 plus for the community school coordinator, ideally full-time, and a health practitioner. That money can be used, if you already have one of those positions paid for in another way, that money can be used for wraparound services. And that grant also increases over time with inflation. There's also per pupil funding. So per every eligible student in your school, so those that are counted as living in poverty, using 55% as the starting point, you're going to get some extra per pupil funding. And we'll talk about how that's calculated in a minute. There's also a director of community schools at MSDE in the legislation. That position is currently vacant. We are on pins and needles hoping that we will have a new point person at the state soon. And then the legislation requires that every school complete a needs assessment, and that should be done in collaboration with some kind of school family council or body. So that's the sort of meat of what the bill says about community schools. Next slide. So everybody wants to know, what does that mean for us in terms of money? So for the personnel grants, it starts at that 50%, 55% poverty level, and whatever method we're using this year to count poverty, and it goes up to the 80%, and the phase in is kind of backwards. So the highest poverty schools are going to get these personnel grants first. So you can see that we're heading into FY 2024 next year, and that is going to be at the 60% rate. And so all schools that are at that 60% rate of poverty will receive those personnel grants. Then we move to next slide. The per pupil grant allocations, these are also phased in. So a certain percentage of that per pupil funding is given to each level of poverty in each year. So that's being phased in through 2030, which seems like a long time from now, but I know the time's going to pass like that. And then I know this chart might make people's eyes swim a little bit, but I can explain what it is. So this is the cash values for the per pupil funding by the percentage of poverty and the phase in. So I can give you a very concrete example of what this would look like. If you are a 75% poverty school and you have 400 students in your school, then that means you have 300 eligible students. That 1 out of 3/4 of your students are eligible, including living in poverty. For FY24, we're at 32% of the full phase-in. So that's $863.69. You multiply that by your 300 students. And so for in 2024, your school would receive $259,000 extra dollars for your per pupil funding for implementing the community school. And what do you get to spend that on? Next slide. All of these additional wraparound services are eligible to be used for those dollars. These are also listed in the legislation. These are just examples, but there are myriads of ways. All of this should be based on the needs assessment of the school. So whatever your needs assessment reveals as being important, that's what we want you to do. Next slide. Just a few little local variations. If you have 40 or more schools that are community schools in your county, then your county, your local school district can coordinate those dollars. They don't have to send all those dollars directly to the school. In every other district, the 100% of the dollars should be going to the school, and then the school gets to make those decisions about how they might be shifted around and used. We do have lots of different models. In Baltimore City, we have a lead agency model and also district-led lead as the lead agency. We call that kind of a hybrid situation. But in most counties, the district is serving as the lead agency, is hiring the community school coordinators and placing them in schools. But we do have these partnership schools where a community-based organization is serving as the lead agency in Baltimore City. There are pluses and minuses to each of these models, but it's just something that everybody might want to look at as how different people are implementing across the state. And then we also see that local school districts are leveraging city, county, ESSER dollars, Title I, to augment their blueprint dollars to really make a robust community school or bring on community schools earlier. Those are some of the things that we've been observing. Next slide. And last but not least, we do have our own concerns. There isn't a common needs assessment across the state. We think that might be changing with the AIB. We are really looking forward to having that director of community schools be filled at the state level. We think that the full definition of community schools should be actually legislated and included in the bill, and that's something we might be working on for next year. And we think there should be more flexibility for the districts in order for them to implement some more systems building and support for community schools. So things that we're working on and things we would love to have your input on as we move forward. Last slide. As I mentioned, there are some great resources. The AIB website has all the reports, all the local implementation plans from the school districts, the state implementation plan, ways for you to watch meetings and work groups. So I really highly encourage you to go there, as well as to explore the Consortium for Coordinated Community Supports. And of course, the Maryland State Department of Ed has a really good blueprint page too to help you understand and dive deeper. And I went maybe too long, but too fast at the same time, but you're welcome to find me at the next slide. And please, if you're interested, join our next Maryland Coalition for Community Schools meeting on May 4th at 10 o'clock a.m. And the link to register is there. And I get to pass it to Tammy.
Hi, thank you. My name is Tammy Levy, and I work with university startups, and we see ourselves as a solution provider. We work with school systems across the state, and I want to start by introducing you to Ramaya.
Hi, my name is Ramaya Davis. I use University Startups Employment Program and match my passion for social justice with a fellowship at Seed and Disruption. I then entered the University Startups College Counseling Program, where I was empowered to become a full-time student at the best university in the world, Howard University.
Ramaya had no idea that she was college material. She originally worked with us through one of our nonprofit partnerships, and through our entrepreneurship program, she determined that she was interested in social justice causes and issues. She then self-enrolled in our college counseling program, and Ramaya is now a successful student at Howard University. Her entire trajectory changed because of the work she did with us at University Startups. Next slide, please.
Hi.
University Startups is delivering solutions to school systems and to students. Our mission is to work with under-resourced communities and empower students by providing easily accessible resources. Our focus is on college preparation, workforce readiness, and social entrepreneurship. The blueprint for Maryland's future and our values align, especially when it comes to pillars 3 and 4. We introduce pathways to students for post-high school, provide opportunities for growth when it comes to service learning projects and internship credit hours, and help close opportunity gaps for students who are most vulnerable. Our solutions are based in the idea that we can change mindsets and remove barriers to success. Our technology is easy to use, customizable, and can take students from career exploration in middle school to summer bridge programs as they prepare for the transition to high school, and all the way through their high school experience. We ensure students know the various pathways available to them, so that they are empowered to make decisions about their educational future, whether that looks like CTE programs, credentialed and certified programs at community colleges, traditional four-year colleges and universities, or if they decide to head directly into the workforce. Our college counseling course provides bandwidth to counselors, accountability to students, and information to parents who often do not have the experience of going through this process themselves. From selecting appropriate schools to financial aid guidance, our course addresses it all. It can be delivered asynchronously by using a facilitator in a hybrid fashion, or it can be teacher-led. Our easy-to-use dashboard means overworked counselors and teachers can see exactly where a student is along the timeline. Students leave our employment course with a resume, a cover letter, and a LinkedIn profile. We even invite our students to connect with us at university startups so that they can begin to grow their professional network. They will have polished their interviewing skills, and students report feeling more prepared and more confident after going through our employment program. We tie all of our programs together through our innovative Impact Internship program. Every student enrolled in our platform has the option of becoming an intern. Through our virtual internship, students work directly for university startups, beta test our programs, and provide feedback. This gives them something unique to add to their college application and resume, and they gain valuable and transferable workplace skills. Students love the gamified system that lets them earn additional titles within the program and report exciting outcomes when it comes to being prepared for their professional journey. Next slide. Here are some of the outcomes according to our intern students. Next slide, please. Please feel free to reach out to me. This will be in the toolkit package, as will the next slide that has some of our additional information. Thank you, and I'm going to pass it over to my friend Kathy.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy. I am the proud parent of Baltimore City Public School students, and I myself was a middle school teacher for about 16 years before I joined the team at Clymb, where I now work in developing K-12 partnerships. Clymb is an emotional wellness platform for young people. As it pertains to our children and emotional wellness, there's some good news. In a recent survey, parents reported high levels of curiosity and persistence for their children. And these are both indicators of positive mental health. But as educators, we all know there are emotional wellness statistics that are concerning as well. We have almost 6 million young people aged 13 to 17 with diagnosed anxiety and almost 3 million with diagnosed depression. And we're seeing behavioral issues in about 9% of our children. And having been in the classroom, I know on many days that estimate of 9% may actually seem low. Most alarmingly, in 2021, more than 1 in 5 students seriously considered attempting suicide. Our young people are living in an environment of toxic stress. There can be physical health issues that arise as a result of toxic stress, as well as behavioral and emotional outbursts, and even an increased risk of substance abuse. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future does take seriously and addresses emotional wellness for our students. Specifically, Pillar 4 calls for addressing barriers to learning, and it also specifically requires the expansion of behavioral health supports in each local school system. One way for schools and districts to meet those requirements is with Clymb. Our platform meets students through technology where they are really most comfortable. Daily mini lessons arm your students with coping skills they can carry with them. And these skills will help increase mood and focus and emotional well-being. Students check in and answer a few questions about how they are feeling right then. Clymb then uses an algorithm to push out 3 resources that the students can choose from for that day. The resource library is organized by the 5 CASEL competencies. And knowing that not all young people learn the same way, the activities are created using an array of learning modalities like visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Gamification like streaks and badges are embedded within the platform to keep students engaged. We refer to our adult stakeholders, our teachers, our school counselors, our administrators, as Clymb champions. Each one, given their own dashboard, are able to look at individual student check-in data or view cohorts of students. A monthly student checkpoint allows Climb champions to see how their climbers are moving through CASEL's 5 competencies. And it can help to drive data-informed programming and interventions within the school or district. The metrics that are collected can also be used for student one-to-one meetings or parent conferences. This is Anita. She's one of our amazing Climb champions. As a social worker, she finds Climb to be a great opening activity when she meets with students individually. She also has all of her students using Climb several times a week. She reported to us that 20% of her students who are now receiving intensive social and emotional support were actually identified through Climb. With our own pilot testing and through a study with the American Heart Association, we have gathered evidence of Climb's impact on students and the culture and climate of the school. And Climb works. 55% of students showed improved social emotional competency, and 64 report feeling more focused after completing a Climb activity. If any of this sounds like something that could help support your school's wellness programming, please reach out. We can connect for a demo of the platform. And now I'm going to toss it back to Tori for some Q&A.
Thank you so much, everyone who presented. Now we're going to open it up for questions. Anything that came up previously during the presentations or anything that you want to address now, feel free to either drop it in the chat or you can, turn your video on and just talk to us directly. We're here to support you and hear your thoughts on the blueprint.
I just want to say that all of the great suggestions, I'm just so delighted and I can't wait to bring them back and begin sharing them out there with all the schools that we're working with. I just think that the construction sites and career day activities, and there's just so many great opportunities here. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm super excited about this, and I know it's a lot of information, and I agree with Alan in the chat. It's a lot to take in, but I am curious about what blueprint implementation is looking like where you are. If you have seen any kind of results or something you can point to in your school community.
Also, while we're looking for those responses, Stella asked a question about transportation. So definitely, I think that is an allowable use, but I would double check with your district because they may have specifications that they have put in their plans about things that they want the per pupil dollars to be used for or not used for, et cetera. Or you could reach out to MSDE for additional guidance just to make sure that that's an allowable use. But I know that transportation is actually a really important aspect of ultimately multiple levels of engagement, whether it be a field trip or potentially bringing in parents or family members or doing other things. So I think always tying back to, well, how does the transportation request relate to your needs assessment and the programming that you're doing, and that should make the case for it that it's an allowable use for your per pupil funds.
Thank you, Ali.
My name is Florence Okehi, and I work for Baltimore County Public School System. Thank you all. This is it's awesome information. And I registered because community schools is something new in Baltimore County. And I've just been trying to, get a lot more information about it. So we have a community school facilitator in our building. And I have been participating in the monthly meetings that, he's been calling, with a few parents attending. and the meeting is, like centered on how to increase, student engagement, like involving students in after school programs. We did a need assessment, with the kids. Excuse me, please. I've been training. And sorry about that. So we've done a needs assessment just to know what the kids need, but without taking too much, I'm just listening to you to this presentation, and it has opened my eyes to and my mind to a lot of questions that I have, and I think because I've gone to the facilitator to know. First of all, I skipped the part to let you know that I am a social emotional learning teacher in this building. I work with special education kids, and I work in a very needy area, and I always want to help my kids, either, by making sure they eat, clothing. So I don't know what these funds are supposed to be used for. And that's what I've been trying to find out, because I'm spending a whole lot of my own money helping the kids that I mentor, so I think I can go back now and tell the facilitator that I attended this, and maybe he can give me more information, but I'm just willing to assist him to get more kids, involved, because the kids need help, but they don't know the kind of help they need. The parents don't also know. It's like a lot of us don't know where to start. So thank you.
I just want to really thank you for your energy and participation and your commitment to your young people. And one thing I'll mention is that one thing we have heard from Baltimore County particularly is that sometimes just because that it is still a school district, and schools procurement processes are making it harder for the community school coordinators to spend the dollars directly in the ways they want to. So because the way that school system procurement processes work, it's like they can't just give the cash or give the item to the person immediately. They have to go through this long rigmarole, and they're trying to work with community partners to kind of find ways to make more flexibility, like the Y, who works with the community school coordinators in the Baltimore County. But that's one thing we really have to help them figure out. That's one of the advantages of a lead agency model when you have a community-based organization serving in partnership with the school, is that a lot of times they're a little bit more nimble about being able to get those direct needs served in that minute, without having to wait the 6 months for a PO to get processed. So there's definitely some disconnects between the let's help somebody right now with what they need in the immediate, and the way that bureaucracies work. So I would definitely agree, though, that going back to your coordinator and kind of being very specific about what your needs are might be able to help you, maybe not in the like very immediate, but in the more long term, there might be able to get those supplies and things that you need more readily available to you.
I would like to add that I was in a Baltimore City community school just last week, meeting with the community coordinator, and the students rely on this person all the time. This community school coordinator had extra clothes available for students, had bean bags for students to sit in. It's vitally important that those of you who are in this role have access to creating the external partnerships that are going to help your specific student body and school set. So thank you so much. And I see that somebody else has written in that it really does take a year to figure it all out. So be patient and let's get this going, right? So thank you.
And I would just add to that, the lag between when the community has assessed their needs and the funding the fact that that gap exists is why we need advocacy, because the system is slowing down the services getting to the community. So it's really important that community voice and building that relationship with your community school coordinator. I would also say with the principal too is super important, to get their perspective and be a partner with them to strategize about what partners the community needs in order to achieve the things that it says it needs, and what assets exist in your school as well, who can help each other out within the community, is something that community schools lends itself to naturally. So I hope that you're enjoying the fact that you're now a community school. And again, if you need any kind of resources or anything like that, or want to strategize how your community school can get into advocacy, because they are definitely breeding grounds for it, I'd be happy to connect.
Alrighty, if we have time for one more question, if anyone has one more question, otherwise we can close it out. I really appreciate everyone taking some time to join us today, and I really hope that the information you received today can help us reach our students who need them most. As you can hear, there's that need is there and the funding is there, and that's why we're all here in this Zoom room together, is to make sure that those resources reach those students. So thank you so much for joining. If anyone has any final questions, please drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we can close out at 4:55, and I'll give you back those 5 beautiful minutes of your lovely Wednesday evening. All righty. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, we'll be sending out a toolkit with everyone's contact info, with the implementation toolkits, all the links, all the slides. Apologies for missing a bit of the beginning of the presentation, but you'll receive everything else after the point that we started recording. So we look forward to connecting with you in the future, and I really, really hope that you have a beautiful day. And again, thank you so much for spending some time with us and for everything that you do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. All right, closing us out. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I just want to say that all of the great suggestions, I'm just so delighted